The following program is a Nighthawk Network presentation.
Good evening, my people. What's going on? It's your boy E-Buck, also known as the Nighthawk, and we are here to once again discuss things with you on my I Am Nighthawk pod show, where I often, and more times than not, will talk about the things that I think about while many of you are asleep, like literally sleep. And I've definitely thought about a couple things this week in particular. We're going to bring those to you. And also, I have a special little something something for you at the end of the show. So, that being said, let's get into it. Tonight, I offer for you a conversation about recent events in the news, particularly one in particular. And tonight's episode, I'm entitling, Are We Paying Attention Here? Are we paying attention here? I ask this because in talking to people as I often do, I try to gain some type of understanding of what people are thinking in real time in terms of certain subjects. And I have got a few opinions on this week. And of course, if you want to add your own opinion, you may either in the comments here on Facebook, or you can go to my YouTube page where this is showing live as well. That is Eric Buckner, Nighthawk Network Detroit, and you can post those comments and we can actually play them live on the air for us to discuss. So again, tonight's topic is, are we paying attention here? Now, the question is, what exactly, Mr. Buck, do you want us to be paying attention to? Well, good people, let's get into it. All right. Now, as you know, there's been a few events that have happened this week of note. And when I say of note, I think of, okay, years from now, will we consider these things, or will they just be something that was a footnote into what happened in 2025? Okay, of course, we know about what happened last week with the unfortunate death of the young man who spoke out on various subjects, good, bad, or otherwise, Mr. Kirk. His funerals today. I'm sure they'll be airing a lot of what happened with that in the next 24, 48 hours and so on and so forth. Very tight security, and understandably so because of what happened and how it happened. Now, as a result of that, people have had various comments about how they felt one way or another. But I would say the vast majority of us do acknowledge that this young man was unlawfully and basically unjustly murdered for basically having his opinion. And it was done in a way that was very heartless and cruel. And bottom line is, this young man is no longer here to be a father to his two children and a husband to his wife. And that is an awful, awful thing. Nobody should be dying in their 30s for foolish reasons, period. Let me say that up front and outright, okay? Now, people have had varying opinions. Most of them that, some of y'all feel a different way. It's fine to feel that way. Or is it? Back to the subject. Are we paying attention here? Now, one of the big things that happened this week after the fact was Monday evening. One Jimmy Kimmel, of course, is a comedian and, more importantly for this discussion, a late night talk show host who oftentimes has political satire around the president and his administration and what's going on. Now, understand he's been doing this for the better part of 20 something years on the air. They're at the American Broadcast Company, also known as ABC, also known as partners with the House of Mouse, which is Disney. Now, what happens is over the years he's talked about who's ever been president and had his opinions one way or the other. Okay? Let's keep that in mind. As our good buddy Road to Stardom, Miss Ego Simmons checking in. What's going on, Road? Thank you for checking in. As always, we appreciate you. Feel free to comment as you always do, my friend. Now, Jimmy basically went on the air and said some comments in regards to the whole situation with Mr. Kirk and how the president was dealing with it, so on and so forth. Basically, if you go on YouTube, you can look up those comments. I chose not to play that video or post it, and there's a reason for that, to be honest. Now, that reason comes to light later on when 24 hours later, there were several of the broadcast partners, in other words, the people that air the Jimmy Kimmel show, who basically had decided to preempt Jimmy Kimmel's show. In other words, not show it at that time slot for the time being. Now, we come to find out that those decisions more than likely, were made based on the comments of the FCC commissioner. That is the person in charge of the Federal Communications Corporation, the FCC, that basically monitor all the broadcast networks, whether that be radio, television, otherwise, to make sure that they are in compliance. And based on his comments, where he basically said that anybody that's airing Jimmy, based on what he said, I'm not so sure about what your license situation looks like down the line. They took that as a serious threat, and as a result, determined, yeah, Jimmy, we can't air your show. Now, it went a step further because the ABC, the American Broadcasting Company themselves, said, yeah, Jimmy, we're gonna have to go on ahead and suspend you for a minute, bruh, till we figure all this out. Because right now, this is causing more problems than it's solving. Now, initially, that's what we were told. This is why that happened. So basically, Jimmy sat the rest of the week after Tuesday, I believe it was, on the shelf, and people showed whatever they chose to show when his time slot came in. I know one night here locally, they showed Family Feud for an hour or so. Then, of course, there was a special they did Friday honoring Mr. Kirk that they showed in most of those time slots in most of those places. Now, think what you will of that, okay? Perhaps an olive branch, perhaps a kissing of the ring. Not sure how you want to categorize what happened there. Now, of course, at some point, the president, who basically gets asked about everything, because for someone who does not care for the press, he is very, very apt to discuss whatever, particularly if it tickles his fancy. And was asked about the whole Jimmy Kimmel situation. And of course, he was like, glad that Jimmy got fired and so on and so forth. Understanding, to this moment, Jimmy Kimmel has not been fired. Let me be very, very clear. Jimmy Kimmel has not been fired from the Jimmy Kimmel Show or ABC. Understand, Jimmy Kimmel is one of the higher paid people on television right now. Let's have chat help us out here, because I don't have a amount for you, but that's what chat and Gemini and all that is for. How much money does Jimmy Kimmel make per year? According to chat, Jimmy Kimmel's annual salary for the Jimmy Kimmel Live show is between $15 and $16 million a year. $15 to $16 million a year. I want you to remember that amount for two reasons. One, for the conversation we're going to have a little later. And two, the fact that, okay, in the lifetime of your average individual, you may make slightly over $1 million. If you basically work from age 21 to retirement age of 65, making about 50 to 100, somewhere in there. Most people make between that and maybe 3 million. Okay, so if you're making 16, I believe that was 16, $18 million a year, and Jimmy's been doing that for the better part of a decade, trust, Jimmy should be all right. If Jimmy don't work now, other day of his life, he should be okay. Rhoda is chiming in. She says, how are you honoring a man who didn't give two ish about this country? Now, again, Rhoda is a learned person who does her research. So she is familiar to some degree with Mr. Kirk and his speakings. Keep in mind, I only know of his existence because I saw a part of his speech that he did at the Republican National Convention. Outside of that, I knew very little about Mr. Kirk. And as I learned what his philosophies was and some things he talked about, I must be very honest. I did not agree with much of it. However, I did like the fact that part of his quote unquote mission was to go to places, oftentimes where they didn't necessarily agree with him, and sit down and have discussions about his opinions and have like legitimate conversations, which I very much appreciate. You know, I love to have that forum here, where even if you don't agree with what I'm saying, we at least can sit down and discuss and have a back and forth and come to some type of conclusions, come to some types of agreement, some types of resolution. Because if this country could actually sit down and do that, a lot of the problems that we are having could be resolved, I feel. My personal opinion. But yes, when all is said and done, bro, you weren't a fan. I wasn't a fan. But there are many people here in the country that is. As you seen today, if you watch the news, his memorial was very well attended by thousands and thousands of people who flew from across the country to come be in that place to honor him, whether we felt he was honorable or not. Okay, including the president of the United States. Now, y'all know how I feel about DT. Need not be said, but that's part of what comes into this conversation. Clearly, Jimmy's not a fan, okay? We know this. He's made it abundantly clear, not only in his monologues, but outside of the show. On the reverse end, DT, also not a fan of Jimmy. Does not care for him at all. In terms of all the late night talk show hosts who he has issue with because they all talk about him in a negative light at times, Jimmy was definitely on the top of that list. So this whole scenario kind of played into his hand. And again, I encourage you to actually look at the clip from that Monday Night Now Jimmy Kimmel before you make any strong conclusions. Because based on what I heard, I understand the interpretations of what was said, but ultimately, Jimmy didn't really go where they said he went with it, okay? And remember, comedian, all right? That don't mean as comedian you can say whatever you want, but in comedy, there is some leeway to some of it, and I felt like he used that leeway correctly. Okay? In that instance. Now, some people are calling for Jimmy Kimmel to be fired, including the president, as we mentioned. Some people are calling for Jimmy to issue a big time apology. Okay, Roll checking in again. She says, did you see what Candace Owens said about Kirk? I could only imagine. Again, speaking of people I'm not a great fan of, Candace Owens definitely on that list. A lot of people feel that way about Candace, but of course, Candace has a large following in this country as well. I can only imagine. Basically, if there is some type of link or info you can send me off the air, Roll, send it out. Check it out later. But yeah, definitely not two of my favorite people, Candace in particular, for several reasons we don't need to get into. But the thing is, that is my opinion. And here in this beautiful country that we call America, I have a right to my opinion. Or do I? We go back to the title again. Are we paying attention here? Shout out to the people listening on the radio side on WTEA Radio. What's T? And also on the Nighthawk Network Radio, which will be reinstated sometime in the next 7 to 14 days, according to the Board of Trustees, who have finally worked out the financial dealings of said show. Talk about that a little bit later. Uh, she said she was basically bigging him up. Not a surprise. They ran in similar circles, so it makes sense. But again, like I said, not a big fan of Candace, not a big fan of his. But again, respect both of their rights to their opinions, whether I agree with them or not. Now, here's the problem, good people. Remember, in this country, we have this beautiful document called the Constitution. And in the Constitution, we have this thing called freedom of speech, where we're allowed to say things for the most part without fear of being incarcerated and such, unless, of course, there are things that incite a riot, so on and so forth. Now, that's how it is at the moment. But remember, over the years, the Constitution has been amended several times for various things. We even go to, like, remember Prohibition? Once upon a time, it was illegal to sell or make alcohol in this country whatsoever. Okay? They then repealed Prohibition later on, and now some of you, I'm sure, sitting here getting your alcohol on. Okay? So remember, they made law, they changed law, they made law again. There's nothing in the Constitution that says, okay, we can't change what we didn't change before. Keep that in mind. Pay attention to that. Now, remember, the president of these United States, whether we like him or not, has the biggest pulpit of any person on the planet. Basically, when he talks, people listen. And if you run your administration in a way to where when you talk, people listen and they make things happen on your behalf, that's where things can get tricky. So basically, you got the FCC guy in the palm of your hand saying, look, Jimmy talking stuff and I don't like what he talking. Deal with it. And you deal with it in a way to where all the stations say, hey, I don't want the FCC on my back. The easiest thing to do is like, Jimmy, sit your down somewhere till we figure this out. I remember Jimmy Kimmel under contract, okay? Also remember Jimmy has said in recent times that, yeah, he's thinking about giving all this up anyway. Understand, Jimmy Kimmel got kids. They getting older now. He getting older now. He's been doing this 20-something years. The climate of the world is changing. I think he's just getting fed up with the whole process of the whole thing, okay? You got to understand, most of these shows don't have a long shelf life. There are the exceptions, like the Tonight Show. But even in the Tonight Show, they've had different hosts over the years, from the initial host to Johnny Carson to Jay Leno to good old Jimmy Fallon, and the Late Show with David Letterman, so on and so forth. Okay, so these things change like seasons do, but now we're at a point where our current president don't like anything negative said about him that's publicized and people laugh. Okay, all the late night shows are standing with Jimmy as they should, because they are protecting Jimmy's right to freedom of speech, much like they are protecting their own. Not to mention those guys running a circle where they all kind of cool with one another. And should we also mention that when asked about this whole scenario, there is this thing called Truth Social, where the president expounds on some of his thoughts that he didn't get out in the media that day on his own little media site, where he's basically said, yeah, and Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers, they need to do something about those too. NBC, do the right thing. So pretty much putting it out there that, yeah, I wouldn't mind if you make them go away as well. We've already gotten rid of the show hosted by Stephen Colbert. It's in his last season. My assumption, keep in mind, if I was a betting man, I'm thinking this at some point in the next week or two, Jimmy comes back. That is Jimmy Kimmel, says something of an apology for the sake of, in other words, the sake of, because I'm sorry, I can't just give away that 18 million per se. But in the same token, if I got stacks of that 18 millions in the bank, then I in turn would say, look, I done made 100-some million. They can't take that from me. Smurf all this, I'm out. If Jimmy made that decision tomorrow, I ain't mad at Jimmy. In fact, way to stand on your principles, sir. But if Jimmy come back like, I apologize, really I do, I ain't mad at that either. If I made this 18 million 1 year, I'm good for the rest of my LOB, my LIVE for real. Road is saying people are canceling their Hulu and Disney accounts. Yeah, because they feel some type of way of how the House of Mouse has dealt with that. Now, let me add this to the mix, okay? Disney is currently seeking to merger with NFL Network and buy them out and add that to their product. There are also stations in that system that air Jimmy Kimmel that are looking to do a merger of some sort also. That needs to be approved by the president and the FCC. So is it wise for those people to piss off those people if they're trying to get that merger going? Because in the end, you had to know at some point this conversation would involve that money, that cash dollar bill. So yeah, probably don't want to piss off the administration right now if we got billions of dollars at stake and we trying to get these mergers on, okay? At this point, y'all remember that game Monopoly? Y'all know how Monopoly work, right? Where basically the goal was to get as many properties as you can, particularly the ones that was all in a row, and get everything set up to where whenever somebody moved on the board, they had to come see you and pay you because you have created what? A monopoly. Where the only way you can get what you need is to come to me and pay me all of it, okay? Because think about it, y'all. There are other platforms outside of Facebook and Instagram. If you look it up, you can find them. There's other platforms outside of TikTok. Look it up, you will find them. But it's a reason why those three entities in particular dominate this realm, okay? Because of the monopolies they have created. It's the reason why more times than not, when people ask you, did you look it up online? They ask you, did you Google it? There's other search engines. There's Bing, there's Safari, so on and so forth. But more times than not, what they ask you, did they Google it? That's because when it comes to that, Google got the big money, okay? There are other phones outside of Samsung and Apple. But more times than not, you either got a Samsung phone or an Apple phone. There's reasons for that. We call them big corp, but truthfully, it's monopoly. Now, going back to said Constitution, it's supposed to be certain guardrails toward monopolies, okay? Because back in the day, when basically one entity owned all the railroads, much like in that game Monopoly, it made to where when competition came along, like we could build railroads, no the hell you can't. You going against us, you don't want that smoke. We gonna make you go away. And at some point, somebody looked at it like, man, that ain't fair. That people get to do people like that. It should be where other competition could be created. That makes for better money scenario overall. So they made that law, but slowly but surely, big money take little money. Y'all know that saying, big bank take little bank? That's what we working on here, people. You know how you got all the little different streaming platforms? Just hold on. About another 10 years or so, monopoly. They're going to bring them all together in some way, shape, or form to where the big money is made and only certain people making that big money. That's how this situation's working right now. Are you paying attention? Are you? Let's go a step further. Okay, now, let's just say good old DT gets his wish. And next week, at some point, Jimmy comes on like, yeah, man, I'm tapping out. It's all good. My bad, but yeah, I can't do this no more. They threatening my family, my job, and this and this. I don't need the stress. I'm out. Okay. Now, one side of the planet, it's gonna be people like, yeah, got him. Bye bye, Jimmy. Punt. Then on the other hand, people gonna be like, I see that's messed up. You see how you did, Jimmy? That's wrong. Hey, they shouldn't be able to do that. Now, here's the problem. That works, then you know. DT like, yeah, buddy. See what happened to Jimmy? I suggest you keep my name out your mouth, or you'll be next. So I am curious to see moving forward in these next week or two how Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers in particular play this whole scenario. Where part of their monologues are usually based on what has happened in the world today and DT's reaction to it. Will they continue on as they have before? Or will, because of either corporate pressure from the national broadcasting company, NBC, or the people that pay the bills over there, the corporate sponsors and such, kind of tone down on it or just not add it at all? Or would they say, damn that, Jimmy Fallon show been like that 18 years. We talking about DT, he ain't no better than nobody else. DT, your orange hair and this and that. Will they do it? We shall see. Because in the end, if they don't do it, the first thing I'm thinking is, no, it ain't them saying, no, let me go and punk out. I don't want that smoke. I'm thinking it's going to be like, yeah, look, we like you, Jimmy, really do. But if you go there, we ain't got your back. We got to keep this, we got to keep the bills paid and whatnot here. So it's on you. Now, let's just say for the sake of argument, DT gets his real wish and gets all them to dummy up and not say nothing and shuts it all down, okay, to where we look up a year from now and there is no late night shows or there's a whole different set of late night shows because all the main quote unquote targets were eliminated. No more Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, so on and so forth. Now, does DT stop there? No, I think y'all know the answer to that, right? Right now, the way this been playing out this last 9 months or so, most of what DT has wanted, the president has gotten. It's playing out right the way he want to. And understand they did set up this whole little playbook that was initially called Project 25, but of course, because it got the bad review and rap and all that, they kind of scrapped that as the real playbook. But if you have read enough of that, you know that some of these things that's happening is kind of coming out of that playbook. Maybe being reconfigured in different ways and dealt with a little differently, but that. Understand that when we deal with the big bullies, in other words, Democrat, Republican, the Republicans are now saying they are the party of financial responsibility. So that anything that's been put out there where like we have to spend extra money to make happen, they are trying to put the kibosh on to a degree. but still was same party that voted for these huge tax cuts that benefit the richer people more so than anybody. Yes, some of those things may benefit us to a smaller degree, but in the end, the big money people are the true winners here, the one percenters. The people who already weren't paying nearly as much tax money as they should or could now pay even less. Not to mention the fact that, DT was never a fan of that thing called the Affordable Care Act, also known and noted as Obamacare. So now that when next year comes, there's a possibility that the tax breaks you get that helps you pay for your Obamacare will not exist or barely exist. Meaning that, okay, if you're paying, say, 200 something now for your insurance because Obamacare premium covered 289 or whatnot, that 289 is gone. So now either you pay the 489, it may even get bumped up to 500 just because, or you basically had no insurance. Good luck, buddy. Especially if you're a person like myself, without the insurance, some of these medications that I take, because mine lapsed, because I quite frankly couldn't even afford it with the Obamacare, and I wait for open enrollment and so on and so forth. Yeah, some of these medicines, they out of hand. All right. Lord forbid if I was on insulin or Wegovy or anything like that. You see how much some of that stuff costs. Full price. Out of pocket. Bad dude. Bad dude. And Lord forbid if you need a surgery or anything like that and can't afford insurance and the medical bill. Yeah. Bad times ahead for some of us. Big time. Big time. Are you paying attention now? Okay. Here's what it goes down to. If DT could control the weather to that degree, to where now when people speak out against him, he could say, yeah, look at that person's Facebook account. Oh, they got that on there. Make sure you get rid of that. Yeah, look at that person's TikTok. Yeah, make sure you get rid of that. Can't have people talking about me. Not like that. If it ain't nothing positive, I don't like it. And of course, you got a right to that opinion. If people don't like you, yeah, you shouldn't feel like you got to kiss their booty. But in the end, if you love America like you claim you do, DT, you got to give people the right to say their stuff just like your boy had the right to say his. All right? So this whole freedom of speech argument is going to come up a lot these next couple weeks. Be paying attention. Because in the end, the more you allow them to get away with, the more and difficult it's going to be to say or do anything. And when we get to that point where we have our little podcast like we do here, and it's like, okay, yeah, we flagged you because you said this and this and this about DT. And we saw this threatening and whatnot. No. I will say it very clearly. I wish life on no man, woman, child, face of the planet. Don't want that because I don't want no man, woman, child, face planet to wish unlife on me, okay? And yes, I said it that way for a reason because even that gets flagged now in certain broadcasts when you say those words. You know what I'm saying? So, people, for those of you who don't like to watch the news or like to get your news picked up, what you got to start paying attention to what's going on. They are slowly but surely, systematically doing things that I don't think the majority of us would approve of long term. Now, some of y'all riding with DT to the wheels fall off, okay? No matter what is said or done, you with it. You with it to the bitter end. At this point, I don't know what to tell you. I guess y'all kind of winning right now. Really. But for those of you who know how this political process works and know that somewhere down the line it's rolling back around where we could vote again and perhaps correct the situation in ways, I suggest you start looking at candidates and understanding their platforms now. So when election time comes, you can make the proper adjustments. So pay attention. That is that. All right, commercial time on the show. When we come back, I want to talk about a little situation that I want y'all to think about as well. We've had this discussion before, but I'm going to break it down my way. So as you look at this picture here in the background, y'all see that? Yeah, kind of self-explanatory, but if not, I'm going to break it down even further when we come back. We will talk big time lottery and money. Lottery breakdown, I'm calling that. When we come back to the show, this is the I Am Nighthawk Pod Show. I am eBuck. We come back. Let's talk about big money, big money, big money. Till then, we got these commercials from the Nighthawk Network. Nighthawk Network, our voices for our people. Nighthawk Network presents Pastor Sean Love. Pastor Sean Love, devoted father and husband, a residing pastor at the River Rouge Bible Assembly in River Rouge, Michigan. Join him as he gives us messages from God's Word, Bible study, and encouragement. You can find him on YouTube under Sean Love.
Hello, hello, hello. It's another glorious day, my T-Steppers, and you know what time it is. I hope you have all of your comforts together because it's time to dish tea. And you're dishing tea, darlings, with Big Meat.
Can't wait. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat.
Darling.
If you're building your dream from scratch, mic in one hand, hustle in the other, this one's for you. Road to Stardom Network and Nighthawk Network present a podcast for the indie by the indie, all genres, all grinds. From hip-hop to metal, jazz to trap, we're breaking boundaries. And it's not just artists. Entrepreneurs, creatives, and self-made bosses, we see you. We're giving you the spotlight. This ain't mainstream, this is your stream. Coming soon. Be ready.
This is the story about an African-American woman who is passionate about professional wrestling and goes to countless events. She then, one day, gets the idea to start a wrestling talk podcast to talk about her favorite wrestlers and wrestling programs. She has a home podcasting room full of wrestling memorabilia that she uses to do the show, and every week you can tune in and join in the conversation.
He talks sports his way. It's the guru's perspective. My bad, y'all. Let's try that again. We are back. This is the I Am Nighthawk Pod Show. I'm your host, eBuck. We are now going to talk about a subject called lottery breakdown. Okay, as you know, every week there are now two major lotteries in most of the states. That is the Mega Millions and the Powerball. That offers you millions of dollars if you just put in your $2 or $5 or your extra dollars for the multiply. You put that money in, guess the correct 6 numbers, and bammo slammo, you are a multi-millionaire. Okay? Now, of course, the way his all set up is you have that opportunity, but you have to pick the right 6 numbers, and you have a 1 in 300 million, 200 million, 400 million chance of making that happen. Now, you already know the statistic that says basically you got a better chance of getting struck by lightning than winning the lottery. You know that part. Now, of course, there's also the fact that even if you don't win the big jackpot, you could be a winner of one of the smaller ones, okay? Now, let's talk about it, all right? We've had these discussions on the air before. Talked about how it seems like more times than not, when the big winner is announced, it is somebody not from one of the major places in America. In other words, not one of the big cities. No people winning out of Los Angeles or Cleveland or Houston or Detroit or Newark, or it's always someplace off the grid, it seems like, where these people win. Okay. Now it's supposed to be a set of 6 random numbers, right? But why does it always figure out that way when we know, based on the sales of the tickets, that the majority of the people buying the tickets are people that live in these large metropolitan areas? Because most people that live in large metropolitan areas are the people that have the type of money to make that type of money work for them in that way, okay? It's not to say that rural people don't have money. Of course, there's farmers out there making millions and millions and all of that. There's people that live in suburbia by choice and so on and so forth. Not saying that like that. What I'm saying is when it breaks down to who's spending most of the money on the lottery, it's the people that live in the cities. So you would think that more times than not, when the big lottery is hit, somebody in one of the big cities is the big winner, right? No. Again, we've had that discussion, okay? I want to break down what's really going on with this, all right? Keep in mind, in the last, say, 4 or 5 years, we've averaged maybe 5 to 8 winners every year of the big jackpot, okay? Remember, most of the jackpots now start out at either the 20 million for the Mega Millions, I believe, and it's 50 million for the Powerball, or vice versa, however it go, okay? 20 million, 50 million, all right? So let's just say somebody wins that boy on Tuesday, the big Powerball, because that's the bigger one right now, about 420 million. And then we start over with the $50 million jackpot. Let's just say that next drawing on Friday, somebody wins the 50 million, okay? Now, before I go there, let me go to the smaller jackpots, all right? I don't want to look that up, but basically, let's just say if you get 5 of the numbers, that's 4 numbers in the Powerball, you win $1 million, okay? Let's just say for sake of argument, you got the multiplier, so you win $2 million. So $2 million, you are a $2 million winner. So they give you the big check like here, and that on the other side says $2 million, okay? You have won. Now, most of us, we thinking, yeah, $2 million, that's pretty good. I think it's maybe, let's go with 5% of all Americans that got $2 million or more in debt right now. Because keeping in mind, if you got $2 million over debt, that means at some point you was able to obtain that much money or you've made that much money. Okay. The vast majority of us is handicapped with between 10,000 and 50,000. Most of us that's in debt here in the country is hemmed up with that type of amount. Okay. To where if we win $2 million, we can eliminate that debt. All right. But keep this in mind. This is not untaxable income. I repeat, this is not untaxable income, which is part of the crime in and of itself. But the way this is set up, I much rather they say, okay, look, we gonna take your $2. $1 is automatically going to whatever tax scenario plays out here. This other dollar we putting in for the lottery, okay? So let's just say in the end, it ain't 50 million, it's 25 million. it really was 50 million, but 25 million we use for the taxes, and that money that we taxing is going to whatever educational fund, school, whatever they claim it go to. Now keep in mind, we just had a lottery where it was 1.4 billion. Okay. Let me put that number out there. 1.4 billion. All right. But no. They take taxes out. Now, let's go back to the lump sum scenario when we get to the big. Let's just talk about these medium prizes, okay? So you win the 2 million, but you don't, because you got to pay taxes on that. And depending on what state you're in, because as you know, most states have a state income tax. You thusly got to pay your federal tax and your state tax. And maybe in some cases, even the local tax. So that 2 million becomes what, maybe 1.4, 1.3, something like that. Okay. So you ain't win 2 million. You're not on a 1.4, 1.3 million. All right. Still more than enough to pay the debts of the average American. Okay. So in most of these scenarios, my advice to you is once you secure your financial blessing, the very first thing you should do before you pay a soul, give out any dime, nickel, go any dinner, take any trip, pay off your debts. Why is that? Because we have learned, you can do the research for yourself. I always encourage you to do your own research. Basically, 1 out of every 3 people that wins one of these large check jackpots like this are usually declaring bankruptcy within 3 years of the time of them winning the big one. Okay. Understand, even at 53, in this day and age, I could see you blowing through 1,000,003 with no problem. Depending on what your habits is, what you spend it on, you could basically spend that before the end of the week and be broke. Depending on what you was buying. I get that. Ideally, in an ideal world, 1.3 may not retire me for good, but at least will sit me down for several years if I spend it wisely. By first paying off my debts and then going from there, living within the means of that million. I could get a decent looking car and fix up the house and all of that and still have money to go trip around or whatever if I choose to for a few years. So 1,000,003 ain't a bad do. But in the end, you ain't playing for that. If you win that, you ain't mad at it. But in the end, you playing for the main reason everybody else playing. We want to win the big check, the big money, like my man's back there. Okay? Because of course on the radio you can't see it, but I basically made a picture of somebody holding the big lottery check. Now, of course, y'all do note that I had that person winning the check have a mask on. We'll get to that. All right, now, so we didn't talk about the little jab. I mean, because in the end, millions of men. Now you know the smaller is 50,000 and 10,000 and 50. But do with that what you will. Okay, you already know you could blow through that little bit of money, no problem. But let's just say, yeah, you did it. You done won this week's big jackpot, $420 million. Congratulations. You are a multi-millionaire. Okay, always keep in mind 3 things off the rip. 1, if you win, the first thing you do is sign the back of that ticket where it says sign. Because in the end, whoever has that ticket and turns it in to Lottery Commission with their signature on it or not, they sign off on it, they are the owner of said ticket, okay? Signing the back of that ticket gives you ownership. And make sure it is a clear signature that looks just like it look on your ID. So that when you go up there, this my ticket, this me. Do that first. Second thing, secure said ticket until you are ready to turn it in, okay? Put it somewhere extremely safe and preferably waterproof and it won't get destroyed and whatnot. Imagine how you would feel if you had that ticket and something bad happened to that ticket. It got tore up, got burnt up. You'll think about that every day for the rest of your life. It will haunt your soul. I don't wish that on nobody. So please secure the ticket. I already know where I would put mine. Where you at? None of your business. Telling you. Yeah. Anyway, all right, so do them two things first, all right? Third thing is they say the wise thing to do at that point is to get you a financial advisor and some legal backing. In other words, so lawyer up and all of that. I think that would be wise. I do. Now, who do you trust with that? That's for you to judge. Maybe you go around a few places like, look, let's just say I'm the lottery winner. What should I, you know what I'm saying? And go from there. Just be smart about whatever you sign off on. Read it. You don't read it. Have somebody else read it till y'all understand it, so on and so forth. Don't sign away your money, okay? Anyway, let's just say all that got properly dealt with, and now it is time to let the world know you won. Okay, now you see where I got to do with the mask on? This 2025. It's not uncommon to see somebody wearing a surgical mask like that. Okay? In the ideal world, you need to look upon the rules and regulations because, in several of these states, you are not required, much like in the last person that won the billion, the two people that is, because they split the money. Both of those states do not require you to identify yourself in person. So we may never know as a whole who won that money. Okay? I get it from the standpoint of, okay, you probably don't want people to know you won that type of money because the greed of it all comes into play. I am not in constant contact with the majority of people in my immediate family or extended family. More times than not, if you see me, it's because you seen me here on the air. You ain't seen me in person or talked to me and whatnot. Make of that what you will. It's just as much my fault as theirs. We ain't tripping. But they find out I win $400 million, and they see this page on TV talking about, yeah, I won and such. Yeah, suddenly this little phone right here gonna blow up. Okay? I can go days without this phone not ringing time, right? Outside of maybe the bill collectors and such. So if this phone just suddenly get blown up off the hook because I got this money, I myself gonna feel very much some type of way. And I'm sure most of you would too. I don't love on me now because I got money and you want some? No. Does that make me selfish? No. That didn't make me human. I mean, hell, most people, when they have money, they ain't really sat down and thought about what they would do with that money. But guess what? E-Buck has. And I'm about to tell you about it. Here's what I would do with my lottery money. Okay, first of all, I am under the complete understanding of me winning $400 million in this lottery is not that. You are not going to see $400 million. Ever. Okay? It's this thing called tax. But before we get to the thing called tax, remember, you got two options. You can get the breakdown money. In other words, you could get installments up to 30 years of your winnings, and it still ain't gonna be 400 million. It'll be closer to the 400 million than option B, which is truly option A. But it still ain't gonna be 400 million because they're still gonna take taxes out. Or you can do what the vast majority of most people do, which is to get the lump sum. Now, lawyers will usually advise you to do the first and get the installments, which makes sense if you are of a particular age. Keep in mind, I'm all of 54. If I get 30 years of installment, that means I got to live to 84 to get all that money. Life expectancy of people in America is about 78 or so on a good day. I'm African American male with heart condition, over 300 pounds. Yeah, I don't like my chances of that. probably ain't gonna make it through that one. So, like most people, I would take the lump sum. Now, assuming I was the only winner of said $400 million jackpot, we already know the lump sum breaks down usually to about let's say 50%, let's say 48% of the jackpot. So instead of 420 million, I'm getting basically 190 million as the lump sum. And understand that 230 million, where does that go? Supposed to go to the education fund and all that? We've had that discussion. I think it's a lie. These are my opinions. But in my opinion, I think it's a lie. All that money ain't going where you say it's going. Because if it was, that means about damn near $1 billion a year would be going to these educational funds. And yet, schools still struggling to get books and pay for lunches and all that. Come on now. And we got money coming from the government. Make it all make sense. Because it don't to me. I was born in the morning, not yesterday morning. Okay? Anyway. So, let's say 190 million, for sake of argument. Now they got to take the taxes out. Government taking about 35%. State taking about good 10, 15%. So let's say in the end, out of that 190 million, I'm only going to really end up with about 100. Slightly over. Let's say for sake of argument, 120 million of the 190 million eventually is my money. Now, if you're a realist, you saying 120 million, you still set for life, my brother. How you gonna trip? You only spent $2 or $5. That's 120 million. Now, you know, most people, all they gonna see is you on TV with the big check that say 400 million. So the assumption is you got 400 million. You ain't gonna miss fill in the blank. There's certain people that I imagine, just like I've thought about this scenario, they've thought about it and said, you know, yeah, if so-and-so hit the lottery, he my cousin, he should at least give me blase split amount. Okay? Now, family, I'm going to tell you right now, so if it ever do happen by some miracle of God, you know exactly how I'm doing what I'm doing. Okay? To my immediate family, I love you. Yeah, I'm going to look out. Okay? I'm going to look out. But if I got 110 million, I know y'all expect me to give y'all 100 million, me keep 10, right? You know it ain't going down like that, right? Hell no. Nah. And on a good day, we barely speak. Come on. Come on now. Seriously. Even if I was mad and Miss Buckner was there in the other room, at the most, by right and by law in some places, she would get half. For the sake of argument, if I won the lottery, after they figured out all the money, and I'm with my wife, and I know she my wife no matter what, then yeah, baby, half this money is yours. So I'm not even gonna figure out what I'm doing with half this money, because half that money yours. You do with your half what you will, and vice versa. That's if I was married, okay? Since I ain't, and it's me solo dolo, this is what I'm doing, all right? Look, $10 million, chopped it up. Basically, whatever the rest of it is after that 100 million, I'm chopping that off. I'm using that money to distribute to family members and friends, okay? Now, based on whatever that amount is, that's what I'm working with, okay? So say it's $10 million, all right? So between my immediate family and what I consider my immediate family is my brothers and their children, okay? There's a certain amount each of y'all will get. To my goddaughters, the two of y'all that claim and I love you, there's a certain amount you will get. For Booger, you know who you is, Booger. You ain't old enough to continue with money like that. So your money gonna get put up in a trust fund. My older goddaughter, she grown. She can deal with it, okay? To my friends, my circle is small and purposely so. You know who you is if you truly, truly my friend. You know I'm gonna look out for you, okay? So there'll be amount there. So basically between that $10 million, I'm distributed between y'all. Okay? Now then there's my extended family, all right? My extended family, my cousins, my mama, daddy side, so on and so forth, okay? Yeah, I'm gonna do something with y'all, okay? What's gonna happen is, out of the 100 million I got left, take another 10 million. And I'm using that to help out with stuff. Ideally, what I would do is say, look, cuz I love you, blah, 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 God bless me. It is upon me to help you along the way. Bring me all your major bills. Let's see what you got. If you got something on that 50, 60,000 mark, yeah. Cuz gonna look out for you. We're gonna take care of all that. You good, okay? All right, cuz you ain't really got no bill. All right, then. Let me throw you a little something. Here's 50 G's. Here's 60 G's, or so on. We're gonna do that till that 10 million is gone, okay? The rest of that money, the 90 million, that's mine. So once I looked out for you, don't come back. Talking about I spent it all, I need some more. Or that one, man, I wish I would fix my mouth to tell somebody after they done blessed me to that degree that, yeah, that $100,000 that you gave me, that wasn't enough. I need more, I deserve more. If you don't get out my face with that BS, I wish you would. When outside of that, you ain't fixed your mouth to say hi or I love you or nothing. And I still looked out. You must be crazy. Get on like you was spit on. In fact, in certain cases, in order for you to get your financial blessing from the state lottery to myself to you, you want to sign off like, look, I got this money. I understand that I cannot come back at me no more. Nah, love you, God bless. Sign here. Now I have your money. Knowing that legally, you cannot come back and ask for not other cent or try to sue me for no dumb ish or none of that. Okay? Because, of course, you know that's the other reason why you got to get lawyered up. Because somebody will find a way to sue you for something one way or another. They're going to get them some of that money by hook or by crook. It's the American way. For some of y'all. Sad. Anyway, like I said, the 90 million that mine. Call me selfish, fat bastard. I don't give a smurf damn what you call me. But I looked out who I'm looking out for, and that's that, as far as that go. Now, I'm going to take another 10 million and looking out for stuff in my city, okay? You know how people be on the news and it's like, yeah, they had a house fire and now they out here. They did a GoFundMe, nah. You know, oftentimes we say that like, man, I wish I could help. In that case, I could. In that case, in some cases, I would. I will, of course, pick and choose to my discretion and try to do that wisely. But yeah, that 10 million is allotted for that. Now, this other 80 million is mine. Now, understand, I already looked out with about a third of my financial blessing after then taxed the hell out the rest of it. But $80 million, that's more than enough money for me to say I'm not working not other day the rest of my natural born life. Okay? So out of 80 million, 25 of that million, 30 of that million, I'm not touching. It's going in the account. It's there. Building up money and all of that. Okay? Not smurfing with it. It's like it exists but don't exist. Because that's my safety blanket in case something stupid transpires or anything else. That 30 million, man, I ain't fucking with. I refuse to ever be broke. I will not be one of that 1 or 3. Never, ever. Okay? The 5 million I will smurf around with. Okay? So if I want to get fancy cars and all that, yeah, I'm going to give me a couple decent vehicles, of course. But I ain't going to get something so fancy outlandish that it's only 1 of 5 and people can't wait to break into it and steal it and all that. I ain't getting nothing that fancy. If I want to ride something that fancy, that'd be something I'll rent for a day, you know? But to own such a thing, no. I'm going to get a nice house with the understanding that that house also needs upkeep and people to take care of it and whatnot. So I will get a mini mansion, okay? Maybe worth a couple mil or so. Slightly off the grid, but preferably in the city or near it. And then, of course, with the rest of the money, it's to what I wants to do, okay? I'm going to invest in a couple businesses. Like, go to a business like, hey, I like this business. What you want to do to advance and whatnot? You want to open a second location? I want to do that. I want to open a couple places of my own. Small business. Keep them small. The type of business where you can invest in it, and if it don't work out, it ain't the end of the world because you ain't spent all that money. Okay? And then I'm definitely going to open some type of care center, 2 of them, in fact. One for middle-aged children to have some place to go and play comfortably and safely and do things and learn things. And then one for adults, as in older adults, as in senior to senior-ish. So basically people my age and up, to where they can go or, go hang out, do things, learn stuff, get services like tax preparation, learn AI, all that type of stuff. I'm opening those 2 businesses. That's what I'm doing with some of the rest of that money, okay? But be broke? No. Double lookout? No. So if I bless you, accept the blessing, deal with it wisely, because you ain't getting no money. Okay, and that 30 million I put up when I die, yeah, of course I got how I want to deal with that, but I'm going to keep that to myself. So that way, you'll just wonder, is he going to look out some more? Is he going to give it all to charity? Is he going to, trust me, you got that type of money, it's going to be wheels and stuff and all of that, okay? So that's how I would deal with my money. That's my lottery breakdown. When you get time, have some fun with it. Figure out your own. Because, for somebody out there, that next jackpot is yours. You might want to plan it out correctly so that you don't end up being that 1 or 3 that end up being broke. Because, man, ain't no way I could possibly live with myself knowing that I blew that type of money in this life. That's why it's another portion of people that after they blow that money, stuff happens. Need I go there? But you know what I'm saying. That will not be me. That will never, ever, ever be me if I am so blessed. Amen. Amen. All right, that is the show this evening, y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. The people that tuned in. Shout out to Road to Stardom for always having my back and me and my friend that love you. But before we go, I got one little thing. Because on the next episode of I Am Nighthawk, we are going to talk about some of the projects I've been working on the side, off to the way, outside of doing the pods and whatnot. Because as you know, we have been talking about, as we will throughout this season of I Am Nighthawk, things of AI, artificial intelligence, generation, and things of that nature. We will talk upon it. We will learn from it. We will teach some of it. And I have, as a result of AI, been working in the space to where I am able to now create music. As you know, I've always had interest in music for years and years and years. But now, through the power of AI, I am able to do these things with its help. As a result of that, I have come with a few songs. This is one of my latest creations through AI. So yes, Facebook, I own this music. I own the rights to this music. I even had the paperwork if I need to produce it. Because this particular program does print that out for you. But this is my song, at least as it is at the moment. So I give you my alter ego T-Buck. And this is the song of T-Buck. It is called Ironically. Back when I was a hoe. I actually named the song Back When I Was a Hoe. Okay? Now I will get to that in a second. But let's hear the song.
for you, yeah. Oh, oh, back when I was a hooey, back when I was a hooey, back when I was a hooey, back when I was a hooey. Yes, I was in these streets, quick to get my freak on when a sexy lady in the sheets. I was outside doing my thing, but then I met you, my baby, and it's time to find a ring. I can't let you go. I'm ready to be a real one, not like I was back when I was a hooey, back when I was a hooey, back when I was a hooey, back when I was a hooey. Oh, baby. Oh, la 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 la. I can't forget, but that was it. For corner, no, there never's a point in need. I went up, that we were up. I went up, injured my skin. That's when I was a hooey. That's what I was. That's when I was a hooey. That's what it was, that baby. Back when I was a hooey, hooey. Back when I was a hooey, hooey.
All right, good people. That was my latest creation. Song entitled Back When I Was a Hoe. Back when I was a hoe. Now, next week when we have that discussion about AI creations and stuff, I will break down to you how that song came to be. Give you a systematic breakdown of what I did, where you can go to make some of your own music. We'll have all that talk on next week's episode of I Am Nighthawk. And also talk you through some of the process that's going on for me making a music video to said song and different variations of said song and all of that. So we'll talk about that next week on the show known as I Am Nighthawk Pod Show. Until then, y'all be blessed. Don't stress. Remember, when all else fails, let the good Lord do the rest. Please pay attention to what's going on in the world, because it may not affect you now, but eventually it will, and maybe by that time, it may be too late. So please be mindful of what it is, okay? Will you do that for me? Appreciate you. Thanks. Sitting here looking for the outro. Stand by. I've always had problems finding my outro to my show. Even when we was in get off my lawn mode. I don't know what it is. Anyway, we out. Peace.